I am so excited that so many of you were mouthing along with having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. We even had some arms in the air. Yes, absolutely.
It's the only way to respond. You have to say, having fun isn't hard.
When you've got a library card. So, Michael, we're so excited that you're here today and here at South by Southwest EDU. Let's start with, how did you become a librarian? What led you to this path?
Yeah, it's a perfect question to start library joy conversations. I became a librarian because I was a library kid, I was a homeschool kid, I was a PBS kid, like probably many of you were, and it just meant everything to me. I felt safe at my local library. It was my childhood library, it's a library that I ended up becoming a library worker for. So I went full circle from troublesome library kid to troublesome library worker to troublesome person in charge of that very same library. And it's where I found some of my favorite friends, my first friends at the local library, and my good friend Junie Baden Bougie Jones, in Ramona and Beezus, Henry Huggins, Ralph S. Mouse, Bud Not Buddy was probably the first book that I saw where I saw myself represented in books, and they were just so special to me. I always thought, I'm going to read every single book in this library. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, authors and illustrators insisted on writing more and more books, so I was not able to accomplish that challenge.
So hard to keep up,
Very
right?
difficult. Yeah. And I think just that feeling of safety when I was really struggling in life, when I didn't know what my future was going to hold, I tried to join the Army and was medically discharged from Army boot camp and was very discouraged. And when I came back, I said, you know what, I'm going to hang out at my local library while I figure out my next steps. And to this day, I never made a conscious decision. I didn't wake up on March 2nd, 2011 and say, today's the day I'm going to apply to become a library person. I was just sitting there feeling safe, feeling at peace, and I just asked the person at the desk, how do I work for the library? And she already had the job site pulled up. She showed me how to apply, so she probably saw me sitting there the whole time.
Librarians are so good at things like that. Yes.
That sixth sense, that superpower. And then I applied, and I am sitting here today at SXSW EDU, so I must have gotten hired. And the rest was history. I think I became a library shelver by far, very, very underpaid, but by far my most favorite job. I love working 16 hours per week. Great way to work. And then I was hooked from there. I said, you know what? I love being in this place. I feel so much joy being surrounded, not just by books, but being surrounded by bookish people, by people who need the library and library workers, surrounded by educators, making friends with teachers and so many more people. And I went and got my education. I got my bachelor's degree from University of Phoenix, and then I got my master's degree in library and information science from San Jose State University. Some alumni in the stands, one or two, very nice. And then from there, I just kept on going, and I became a children's librarian, marketing librarian, and a supervising librarian. But the children's librarian is where I met the most wholesome, unhinged, evil people known as the library kids, and I started telling their story all the time, and it just, even though I'm not working in libraries professionally anymore, I think it's so cool to be able to go to places like this to talk with you all and talk about how important library joy is and so much more. And it's just the honor of my life to be here today, to be able to have a conversation with Arthur Reed, to have Arthur Reed's library card tattooed on my arm. I'm that big of a library nerd, of a library person. And before we get to our next question, I just talking about this video. You may not know this. They had asked me if I wanted to actually speak with the person who plays, air quotes, plays Arthur Reed's voice. And I said, absolutely not. How dare you? I don't want to ruin the magic of Arthur Reed. That's like asking Mickey Mouse to take off his head at Disneyland, which is not true if there are any library kids watching this. Mickey Mouse is Mickey Mouse at all times.
At all times.
But that was my Arthur experience where I was like, absolutely not. I do not want to be in Arthur's presence. That is way too much pressure for a librarian like me.
My favorite moment in that is that moment of TV magic where you get to pass the library card across and you just can feel kids gasp. You know, the idea that we could pass this through the screen.
Adults gasp and giggle far more often than kids. So I love that magic in that book, Library Joy magic of passing things lasts throughout our entire lifetime.
Right. Well, I think you and I grew up with some of the same friends. Beezus and Ramona didn't tell me that you were friends too, but I had shared with Michael, my father was in the Coast Guard, and so we moved a lot. And one of the first things we do in every new city was get a library card. And my brother and I both just felt like this was such a safe place. And I think for my own kids, who also have had to move around a lot, we've really recognized the library as a place where you can always go. But I think when you talk about those library workers, too, it's a great opportunity for kids to feel safe talking to a grown-up. I mean, I feel like I had one child who was always very shy, and I could say, he'd say, I really want to get a book that's like, you know, the Magic Tree House kind of thing. And I said, well, why don't you go ask the librarian? And he'd be terrified to do that. But the nicest person in the world, the person who is there to help that child, is the librarian. And so getting that confidence to be able to talk to someone. When you think about like those really young kids who come in, or those kids who are afraid to go talk to you, what's the feeling you want in that library? Like, how do you set it up to make those kids feel like this is a really safe place for them?
Yeah, I think so. This is the only time I'll ask for audience participation. I'm a person who doesn't believe in icebreakers. But how many of you went to the library as a kid? Yes. I think this is maybe the entire room, or almost the entire room, which is a good thing. But there are so many kids, so many grown-ups, adults I meet who did not get that experience. They didn't get to be a library kid. They didn't get to go to the library. And I like to think when people, if they watch my videos, which if you have no idea, I talk about library kids and library grown-ups on social media. I hope they experience the joy of imagination, of discovery, of curiosity, of being in the library. And I think that's what you felt. That's what I felt. That's what everybody who had their hands raised felt when they went to the local library. They felt that joy of being able to dive into the worlds of Narnia, that zany 16, 19-foot tower, weird school of Wayside School, digging holes with Stanley Yelnats and the gang. I think that's what I'm hoping that they feel when they come to the library. That's what your local librarian, your local library worker is trying to create, that space of, we were talking about magic. That is what we try to create with the library. And that's why the library, as much as the library is for everyone, I love saying that all the time, it's something special for kids because they're ingrained to love stories. Most of us, even if literacy, if reading is not a part of our life, you still read to your library kids. You read to your babies as soon as they get home from the hospital. And they're like, I don't even understand a lick of English yet, and you want to read Where the Wild Things Are to me. You want to read Harriet the Spy. Already, I'm trying my best here. I can't even open my eyes, and you're already yapping at me. But it's that magic that we're trying to create. We're trying to say is whatever you want to feel, this is a library for you. If you're an introverted kid, this is still your library. If you're an extroverted kid, this is your library. Maybe use a little bit quieter library voice, but it's okay. You're still having fun. That is the goal of the library. That's why we say there are library days. You can keep on coming back. You can keep on learning. You can keep on trying more and more. The same way that we do in classrooms is the same experience in the library, trying to say is this is your space. We're trying to make you the best possible version of who you can be, to embrace you for your perfect full self. And that's what the library strives to do each and every day, is to show them that magic and their love for cooking, their love for dinosaurs, their love for tattoos. If you were me trying to get my mom and dad to let me get a tattoo at age 12, it's knowing that Steph Curry and LeBron James are writing books. It's knowing that you're not a loser if you like reading books, if you like stories. That stories are all around us, and I think that's where that imagination. One, it's there from the very early ages of being in kindergarten, but it still exists all the way through 8th grade and into high school and into adulthood. And that's, like you were saying, the same way that you would trust your teacher. That's why we want you to be able to trust your local librarian too, and to know, like, if you've never come back to the library because you're like, oh, the librarian yelled at me one time, or you had a bad experience, your local library, I know there's some library people in the room, they've probably been thinking about that moment for the rest of their career. They are mortified that they could have ever created a bad day for you at the library. And they are trying to make it better for every single library kid from that day out. And I think that's what we're trying to create when a kid comes to the library, to say is, this is your place. I used to love asking that question at children's librarian. I would say, who do you think owns the library? Who's in charge? And they would be like, you do, Mr. Mychal. And I'd be like, I wish I would not be right here right now if I owned the library. Or they'd say, oh, is it the mayor? Is it the president? And you get to say, it's you. This is your library. It's a community's library. It's you and your neighbor's place to be exactly who you're capable of being.
I love that so much, yeah. And some of my favorite stories that you tell in your videos are about library people who are able to come to the library and really be themselves and experience emotion or experience an opportunity to be in a safe place. You know, it's okay to cry in the library. That's one of yours. I've cried in libraries. I don't know.
And too many times. For different reasons. So.
And so what is that? Talk a little bit about the library as that place that can support mental health for people who come into the library.
There is such a big connection between libraries, education, and mental health. I think we often miss it just because, honestly, because of our own lives, because we each have our various struggles on the struggle bus, and it's hard to figure out where we're going to get there, and we're so preoccupied with getting off of that struggle bus that we don't realize what's happening all around us. And we see a place like the library. I think we just talked about library kids. I honestly think we see library kids in the library, and we say, oh, you know what? This isn't the place where an adult like me can be myself, where I can cry in the library. We don't want them to see that. But it is. It's a place of all emotions. It's an emotion of sadness, of grief, of worry, of anxiety, but it's also happiness. It's also enthusiasm. It's sheer joy. It's genuineness. I think they all collide together because people from all walks of life come into the library. It's unhoused people. It's the mentally ill, if they're unhoused and mentally ill, or people just like myself who happen to have an apartment, happen to have a house, but are still struggling mightily. And we get to come together and say, look, we're all sitting here. Sometimes, so I'm a library worker from California, Northern California. So sometimes you would see a whole row, a bank of computers, maybe 5 to 10 computers, and there's people from all walks of life on those computers. There may be a doctor in one computer. There may be a CEO on the next computer, a known gang member in another one, and then a teenager working on their homework, or a library kid playing Paw Patrol games. I know you all are sick and tired of Paw Patrol, but that's what they're doing at the library. And it's just like all those people I mentioned, they're all from different walks of life, but they get to come together with their particular struggles, and they either get to take their struggle hat off, or they can just exist as they are. That's why I said you can make friends at the library, but you can also respectfully mind your own business at the library. And I think that's the beauty of what the library represents. But there is such an intersection between the library and mental health. I think my life is a testament to what the library means to those of us who suffer from mental health struggles. I'm diagnosed with, it's going to sound like a grocery list, with anxiety, with panic disorder, with nightmare disorder, with PTSD, and a few other things. And it's plagued me since I was 8 years old, since I was that library kid falling in love with Ramona and Beezus and Junie B. Jones and Harriet the Spy. They saved my life. The library saved my life. And I think that's what the library does for so many people all the time, is people who are having a dark day. It gives them resources. It says, hello, unhoused person. Hello, new friend. Here's how you get your food stamps. Here's how we help you apply for housing. And it's, for me, it's just how you make it to the next day. It's because of the love of the library. And I'm going to bring the room down for just a minute, and then I'm going to bring it back to library joy, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about, is joy in libraries. I didn't think I would be sitting in this chair today a little bit over a year ago. I left the library world in March 1st of 2024, and it was my intention to leave the world on March 2nd, 2024, one day afterwards. A lot of people saw a video I made on TikTok, and they didn't know that I was essentially saying goodbye in the March 1st video. I think some people caught on, but they didn't know exactly what was happening. And now it's March 3rd, 2025, and I am still here.
We're so glad you're here.
And 1 day later. Thank you.
So glad you're here.
And I honestly, I don't know what it was. I mean, I know what it was. I know it's a lot of library people's kindness, people saying such kind, wonderful things to me, being the PBS resident librarian, which I know we're going to talk about very soon.
We will.
And it just those special moments. But as I met some cool people. I got to be in a video with Arthur Reed. I got to be in an episode of Miss Rachel, which a lot of library kids really love. They're like, "Can you tell Miss Rachel I said hello?" And I'm like, "I'll try my best." But just those simple moments of seeing people in the airport, seeing library kids in libraries across the nation and library grown-ups, and them just saying, Thank you for talking about anxiety. Thanks for talking about depression. I didn't know that we could talk about it. Thanks for encouraging me to get a library card, to go back to the library, even with my late fees. I always love telling the joke about library kids and library people say, "What if I have late fees? What are they going to do to me? We're not going to do anything to you. We're not going to break your legs. There is no library mafia, as much as it would be a wonderful book to write. That does not happen. We just say, welcome back. Either we're fine-free, a lot of your libraries may be fine-free, or we just cancel and waive your fees and welcome you back. But I think that's what it is. It's a chance to keep on going just 24 hours at a time. And that's why, to this day, I don't know why people watch my videos, listen to my videos. I don't know why you're all listening to me talk about libraries right now, but I really appreciate it, and just trying to show people the joy that is their local library, their local educator. 'Cause I think we often discredit how impactful librarians are, how impactful teachers are. I always tell them, like, at some point in their career, they're going to go out of their library, and a library kid or a former library kid is going to see them, and they're first going to be shocked because they thought that they lived in the library or the school.
Yeah.
And then once they get over that shock, they're going to say, "Thank you for helping me find the book with the blue cover. Thank you for introducing me to graphic novels and comic books. Thank you for helping me get a library card. And most importantly, thank you for helping me stay one more day."
And they might just run up and give you a hug too, right?
They might. Sometimes they do. And they're very small sometimes. So sometimes they just run up and hug your knees. Yes. Sometimes they give you a high five. It all just depends on how they're feeling that day.
Well, I think we all know why we're listening to Mychal. Library joy, right? Yes. Thank you. You've brought so much joy to so many people. And I think about that safe space is also stories. That's kind of where you started, that kids love stories and need stories. And I think about a study I heard about years ago. Someone did a meta-analysis of studies about happiness. And one of the things that came through on all of them was that reading fiction every day, people who read fiction every day are happier and have more empathy, right? Because getting into those stories, being someone else for a while, getting to experience making those friends really gives you a different perspective, a different thought about your own life and how you exist with others. It's really a beautiful thing. So Mychal mentioned that he is PBS's resident librarian. Yay. And we brought Mychal on to help kids find books and help parents find books for their kids. And so finding that magic, making that connection between a child and the book that is really going to resonate with them. So I'd love to show a clip of one of Mychal's book recommendations for PBS Kids.
Hello there, my friends. My name is Mychal. I am blessed to be PBS's resident librarian, and I'm here with a book recommendation for you and a story. The other day, I was at the library, and this homeschool library kid came up to me and let me know that they needed a book for Black History Month. So we started the library interview. I figured out what they were looking for. They really wanted a book on an author, writer, or illustrator. So I recommended a few books, and they landed on this book, Jump at the Sun, the true life tale of unstoppable story catcher Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston, one of the most sensational storytellers of all time, of all history. You need to get to your local library and read a Zora Neale Hurston book. I love this book because it is jumping at the sun. It is jumping at chances, at miracles, at whatever you want to do. That is the mission, the goal of the story. You can leap beyond your wildest dreams, and even if you do miss, because sometimes we miss and that's okay, we can still land safely. And I love that. And that library kid, they took the story, they were jumping for joy, and their library grown-up said, "Do we jump in the library?" And the library kid said yes, and the library grown-up said no. And I love that so much, but I also love the blurbs that our author and illustrator included in this book. Alicia D. Williams says, "To all the librarians, the teller of tales," and Jacqueline Alcantara says, "To those who dare to jump and those who give us a place to land." Read Jump at the Sun for Black History Month. Yes!
So there must be so much joy in finding the right book for a kid, right? Yeah.
It's the best feeling in the world to find a book for a kid, and an adult. Honestly, it's like, oh, I did it. I am magic. I was always I thought I was a one library person who didn't have the magic, and then you find that book, and you're just so happy. You're so excited. But I think a lot of people don't understand is like there's so much care. There's so much precision into finding that perfect book for library kids, for people. People come up to me in the street sometimes, at the airport or places, and they'll say, hey, do you have any book recommendations for my 10-year-old, for my 5th grader who loves dragons? And I'm like, I can try my best to give you some recommendations. I'm like, I often have like a big jar of ideas jumbling around in my brain. But I'm like, but it's so much easier, so much more, it's so much better if your kid is in front of me. If they're with their local librarian, so we can ask questions, so we can have a mini interview, so we can figure out what exactly they're looking for. Because at a certain point, as you talk to them, they'll get a response to you, and then you're gonna know this is what they're looking for. They don't realize it, but their voice just rose a little bit higher when they heard you say Spider-Man, or when you said football, or when you said unicorns, and you're like, okay, this is what they're really looking for. They don't know that they want unicorns yet. They don't know that they want to read more and more about Frankenstein. There are a lot of kids who like reading about Frankenstein, whatever it may be, and you're just like, this is part of the process. This is something that we can do together. And for librarians like me, for public librarians and school librarians, what's really cool is we can teach them how to look for the book they're looking for. We can show them how to search the library catalog. We can tell them, you know what? A lot of people don't know how to Google. I did not realize that Googling was a skill until I started working for the library. And we get to show library kids how to Google. We say, oh, you're looking for a book that's like Junie B. Jones, that's also like Percy Jackson, but has elements of Dogman.
Right.
It's like, you need to write this story. This is really what needs to happen. But you type it into Google, and Google's like, this is the best result we have. And they're like, that's it. That's the book that I'm going to read next. And I think that's what's so special about that moment, about those memories, is being able to find that perfect book, but also being able to get that kid to fall in love with the library because they realize that the books that they're looking for, the stories they want to find, so they know that they can feel seen, that they belong, that they can feel safe in books and libraries, is possible for them. And I do get very, very excited about talking about these things. It means a lot to me. But as you can tell, I don't speak as fast as I did in that video. Oftentimes, I know that I only have 90 seconds to make a video, so I am trying desperately to do it. But I also do, I'm from California, so California accent means we just talk really, really fast. But also, I just have so much joy talking about those memories, about those moments, because they happen every single day. They happen in Austin public libraries, in school libraries, in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Arizona, where there are shockingly few school libraries. And that's what we're trying to talk more and more about, is how do we get more librarians into the world, into schools. And this is what needs to happen, and it's excitement like me blabbering to people on the internet is sometimes what it takes to have these necessary conversations to enhance library joy.
And I think, too, when you have those conversations with kids, one thing I love, sometimes it's not the perfect book. Sometimes it's going home from the library with 10 books stacked up, and that idea, that look of surprise of a kid that like, wait, I can take all of these? I can have all of these with me? I think is really exciting. That idea that it's not limited. There's so much you can do at a library. I was telling Michael that in my world at PBS Kids, we often hear from parents saying, well, can you recommend a show for my kids, or can you recommend games or websites? And I know the PBS library really well, but I always say, oh, you should talk to your librarian. And the number of times I've gotten a response with a lot of surprise, because they don't understand that librarians go way beyond books. They do so much more, right?
So much more. I love that you use the word unlimited. One, because I've seen Wicked 4 times now in theaters. So I love Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande and Elphaba. But that's a whole other SXSW talk for future years. But it really is. Libraries are unlimited. They always have been. I think we were just in our previous brief conversation about questions. It's so cool to find the perfect book for kids because there are unlimited options. I think it's so important that you talked about them checking out 10 10 books, checking out a stack of books. There are so many kids who only ever get to take one book because honestly, their grown-ups don't know that you can take more than one book away from the library. They think that they're breaking the rules. And library people are like, no, absolutely not. You can, if we have a 50 library limit, take out all 50. We need more and more room for all these new books so that another kid can come in and take 50 for the books that work for them. And that's why it's saying, yes, unlimited options. That's why it's important for library people, for educators to acknowledge that graphic novels are real reading. They count as real reading. Comic books count as real readings because I think we're going to talk more and more about reluctant readers, or maybe we're going to do it now after my tangents. But no, it's just, I think that's what's important is for so long we're talking about the unlimited aspects of the library, and that's what Library Joy is. It's that it's for everybody because of those unlimited resources. It says, yes, you are a beautiful reader reading graphic novels, reading these comic books. You are not a lesser reader because you're not reading nonfiction, you're not reading fiction books, chapter books. All those books are very important, but your brain is still working. It's still firing on all cylinders, reading fiction, reading graphic novels, reading comic books. And it's also very unfair in a world where we're trying to be more adept to inclusion, into accessibility, to say that they don't count. When you say, oh, it counts for this person in a wheelchair, it counts for this person who's dyslexic, it counts for this person who's autistic, and then you say the person who isn't autistic, who doesn't have dyslexia, oh, you're cheating by reading these books. It's like, well, first, no, not at all. You're not cheating at all. But also, what is your unconscious bias saying about these other readers? And that's why these unlimited resources are so important. And the best resources of all is the educator, the librarian, assuring them that they are readers, that they are taking advantage of their library card. The library card is not just for fiction books. It's for those graphic novels. It's for those comic books. It's for the video game collection. I know all the grown-ups just plugged their ears when I said video games at the library. But it is. There's video games, there's Nintendo Switch games, there's PS4, PS5, there's Xbox. One, it's just because all those games are just so very expensive, and the library is trying to save families, save people money, but also just because it helps them get into the doors of the library. It's like, oh, I didn't know the library has video games. I checked out all these video games. Now I guess I'll try out the books. And maybe they'll get hooked more and more. There's board game collections for family night because the library, as much as we're a house of books, we're the house of community. We're the community hub. We're trying to provide resources so that you can flourish together because that's what the library represents. It's togetherness. That's why there's those board game collections, the musical instrument collections so that you all can save money on ukuleles, on guitars, on drums. When your kids are like, you know what, I don't want to play this instrument anymore. It's not popular. Or they're like, ooh, I'm actually not very good at guitar. I don't want to do this. I'm going to try something else. And that's why you can borrow these things from the library. That's why there's homework help. That's why there's author talks. That's why there's, for adults, that's why there's lawyers who volunteer their time to help you. There really is something for everybody. We need to just have Cynthia Erivo just singing Unlimited in libraries all the time because that's what libraries represent for the community, for all sorts of people. I think it's often very interesting that people who are the most affluent, as much as I think there are a lot of people who are unhoused, underserved, they come to the library, by far the people who are often like the richest people in the community, they love to use a library. For one, I think they're like, we want to stay affluent. We want to stay rich. We want to keep on being able to afford these things. But it's also because they're trying to show their kids that this is how they got to where they are, by taking advantage of the resources available to them. And especially, again, the educators, the library people, to latch on to joy as much as possible and keep on rising more and more with those unlimited resources.
So you mentioned community hub. I want to come to that for just a second. I want to remind everybody, though, that if you have questions for Michael, please put it in the app, in the Slido app. We'll be coming to questions in a few minutes. But the community hub is another intersection between libraries and PBS because we have PBS member stations all throughout the country. And some of my favorite stories are the ways that these stations are a community partner to libraries to make connections. I was talking to somebody from Arkansas PBS this morning, and she was talking about how they did a sensory-friendly activity at their library because they knew this was a place that could bring in the people for us to share the show Carl the Collector, but also we're connected enough with other community partners to be able to do things like pull in activity things to do collection jars together and to bring ponies outside of the library so that kids could touch the ponies. The library can be a real center of community and can connect with partners. So as your experience with a librarian, you got to know the rest of the community too, right?
Oh, by far. I think that the person who knows about all the community resources or knows how to get in touch with them is your local librarian. We're always out in the community. We're trying to learn more and more about our neighbors. We go out to the community, mainly to be able to get feedback, to say, what do you need from your local library? What do you need that maybe your local government isn't offering? How can we help you become better versions of yourself? How can we help you as a community thrive? And library people, we have a lot of ideas. We're always thinking of new things, but we really want ideas that we know has community feedback, because that's how we make partnerships. That's how we convince library administration to allow us to keep on doing those things. I love that you talk about neurodivergent resources. Again, using my own life, as library people come from all walks of lives. There are neurodivergent librarians. There are autistic librarians. There are many dyslexic librarians. I myself am on a journey to see if I am diagnosed as an autistic person. I am going through a medical assessment to determine if that is the case. And I recognize how privileged that is for me to be able to do so. I can afford to be able to get that medical assessment, but many people in the community can't, which goes into your question about community partnerships. That's when we reach out to Kaiser. We reach out to local hospitals. We reach out to mental health departments and say, hey, can you and your therapist, can you come into the library? Can you have workshops that show people, you know what? Maybe your library kid is exhibiting these behaviors. Maybe you as an adult are exhibiting these behaviors, and you're almost able to get a free assessment, a free screening, or you're able to get advice. And that's because we're always trying to bring more and more people into the library, but we're also doing our best to listen to the community and see if they're actually going to come to these events that they suggest. Because oftentimes it happens the first time where no one shows up. And that's like, for me, like, 'cause I know there are librarians in the room, I encourage you to keep on offering those events. Don't just do it one time and say, oh, 2 people showed up, it failed. Keep on doing it again and again, because the community has to build up trust in you, because they want to say, oh, you know what? They've now offered this therapist to come in and talk about neurodivergence and autism 10 times. They're really serious about this. They want to offer it to you. And that's what the library is doing, is we're saying, yes, we are reaching out to community. Sometimes we will reach out to local museums, and who are rescuing animals, and they'll bring in their animals to the library to say, hey, you guys are obsessed with animals. We're human beings. Everyone's obsessed with animals. Check this out. Isn't this cool? This is something you can learn about at the local library. We talked about reluctant readers. There are people who bring in their volunteer dogs for Read to a Dog programs to say, yes, you can read this book aloud to this little puppy. You can build your confidence. You're dyslexic, you're autistic. Let's read to this puppy. This puppy is a trusted community member. This puppy represents Mr. Rogers of neighborhood. I always talk about Mr. Rogers every talk I have.
I do too.
Mr. Rogers is the king. But it is. I think that's the biggest thing about community is we're always reaching out to the different departments. The firefighters will come and they'll do story time, but they'll also teach people how to do CPR. You have more and more people. You have garbage collectors come in and talk about their job. You have schools, public libraries and school libraries, teachers. We love making connections with the school libraries, with teachers. We're always just reaching out to whoever we can think of. If you yell out a community partner right now, I'm sure the librarians in the room are writing down that title to go reach out to them tomorrow. And that's what it's for, because the library is that free space. We have meeting rooms where people can come in and they can table, they can offer information. Because if we don't have a meeting room, we're like, it's okay. You can just talk in the library. We'll let people know it's going to be a little bit louder, and that's okay, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to show people that the community is a library. And then lastly, talking about that hub, if I may, going back to neurodivergence and autism and the such, I think, maybe you wouldn't be, but I am often shocked by how many people they'll ask me in person, or they'll send me messages and make comments, and they will say, are you sure I can bring my autistic kid to the library? If I made a video talking about that today, the following day, at least 5 people would message me and they would say, but are you really sure I can do that? Are you sure they'll be welcome, that they'll belong at the library? And I am here to assure you that they absolutely will belong at the library. I always argue that they especially belong in the library as themselves. I love when autistic library kids do not use their library voice for the first time. Many of you library people will be like, what are you doing? Don't tell them that. But I think it's so important that they don't use their library voice, because it often means they are experiencing in the library in its fullness. They're recognizing their role as community. They can just shriek for joy being in the library, seeing all the books, seeing all the things, and they just have to exclaim their library joy. And yes, me and the library owner can say, shh, a little bit quieter, it's a library. But it's so amazing to hear them being themselves and just saying, but this is the library. This is my library. And that's because the library is a community hub that we're talking about.
Right. It's a central space. We have talked before, too, about kids being seen by the books, the stories that they read. And we know this from television. If a child sees someone on screen who looks like themselves, this is proven by research, they will have higher self-esteem and better success in school. And I know this also happens with books, with getting to see kids who are like them, or, we talk about windows and mirrors, someone who's like me, but someone who's enough different from me that it exposes me to another world, another set of possibilities for who I can be. It's really such an exciting and open place, right?
It's so amazing to feel seen in books. I mean, I talked about how Bud Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis was the first book that I ever saw a black person in when I was a young reader as a kid. And again, I tried to read everything, and it took until Bud Not Buddy for me to say, hey, that kid on the cover looks like me. And as much as I loved all the authors, all the characters I mentioned, it was so special for me to see Bud Not Buddy and say, hey, now I'm in these books that I love. That's so cool. I had much shorter hair back then, so I was like, wow, it really is me on this cover. And it means the world because for so long, not to give you all a history lesson that you already know, but there were so many times, there were so often where people like myself, people in this room, people watching this recording, where we were not allowed to have library cards. We weren't allowed to be in books. We were forbidden from being literate. It was forbidden from teaching us to be literate, to actually be able to see those books. My own grandmother, who I loved all my grandparents. I was lucky enough to live with four grandparents and 2 great-grandparents. But my grandmother and my grandfather, who are African American, my grandma lived to be 90 years old, and she was not able to have a library card as a kid. She wasn't able to visit the library. It was forbidden from her. She didn't have a library card until she was much later in life. But she was so proud before she passed away, because she was like, my grandson goes around state to state and yaps at people and bothers them about libraries and reading and books all the time. And I think that's what it is. It's so special how far we've come in such a short time that we get to be represented in books. We get to, like you said, we get to see ourselves so we can be more empathetic, so we can be happier. And it means everything to kids, especially. I think we often forget how much they are aware of not feeling seen, of not feeling represented. And it means so much to their little brains, to their little souls, to say, hey, look, it's me. I get to see myself. And they know. I was talking with a 5th grader on a panel not too long ago, and this 5th grader was talking about, they were talking about banned books. And they were like, I don't get it. There's almost never a reason that these books are banned. They say, don't read this book, but they don't say why. They just say, don't read it. And I just want to read this book. And this 5th grader said, I want to exercise my right to read books. I'm not making it up, is what the 5th grader said on the panel. And this 5th grader refused to have their image shown on the panel because they were afraid. And I think that's what happens when we're not represented, when we're not seen, is fear and worry creep in, which is why it's so important that Jason Reynolds, that Jerry Kraft, that Kelly Yang, that so many people, I know that Nicholas Smith is walking around here somewhere with his picture books, and it's so important for people like that to illustrate, to write books so that they feel seen. And one of my absolute favorite stories when I was children's librarian talking about people feeling seen is I used to bring a suitcase full of books from the public library to the school library. And of course I packed it with Dog Man and Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Raina Telgemeier, all those those books that they're hooked on. But I also always pack all sorts of books with kids of color, kids from different backgrounds in the suitcase as well. And the joy on those kids' face when they see those books is it's so important. It's so special. Yes, they still checked out Dogman. They still checked out Diver Wimpy Kid, but they were drawn to those books featuring themselves. But I think what's even cooler is that the kids who were not represented, they also found joy in it. They were like, wow, this looks like my friend. This is so special. This is so amazing. There was a book by Jasmine Warga where the person on the cover is wearing a hijab. And a kid saw the book and he said, oh, I have to have this book. I need this book. And he pointed across the room, and one of the other kids, their classmate, was wearing a hijab. And they're like, I want to be their friend. This is their story. I'm going to read this story. I'm going to be their friend. And I always love it because their friend wearing the hijab is like, no. That's not my story. I have enough friends. Thank you very much. But I love the hope in that kid's that kid's face. That they were just like, I'm gonna read this story.
This is gonna be the key.
I'm gonna read it about this person. I'm gonna know them through the book. The book was their key to friendship, to understanding someone who didn't look like them. And that's what a library kid mind, library kid heart, that's what they think when they see those beautiful books showing not just black kids, brown kids, Asian kids, and so on, kids who are characters who just so happen to be autistic, just so happen to be in wheelchairs, but it's the kids who don't look like all of them who are still like, yes, I love all these people. I want to be all of their friends. Even if they've reached their friendship quota, I'm still going to keep on trying. And it's those beautiful books that gave them that hope.
And maybe I have a little bit of an idea of how I can connect with that friend, too. For those kids, we talked about kids who are really introverted. I think books give them a way to connect with someone. You see someone else. I mean, I met someone on the plane because I said, oh, I loved that book. He was reading Tomorrow. And I was like, oh, I really loved that. And it's a way to connect. Right.
It's a huge way to connect. I mean, I was talking with some student reporters this morning from PBS NewsHour, which if you ever get a chance to listen to them, to look at it, you should. And we're
student reporting labs.
We're talking about books. We're talking about things, and they're asking me questions about my tattoos. And my tattoos are essentially the connection that you're talking about. It's the monster at the end of this book. It's Richard Scarry tattoos. It's Arthur Reed's library card. It's Where the Wild Things Are. And it's just those things where people see my tattoos and they're like, oh, I forgot how much I love that book. Yeah. Have you read this book? And they're like, have you read Rebecca Yarros? Have you read Tracy Dion? Have you read Toni Morrison lately? All these things, and it just starts the conversation. We just get to listen to that same childlike joy, and I think that's what it creates. It creates a joy of connection from hearkening back to their earliest memories of books to now just discovering new ones and new ones and new ones.
And another way of making community. Right? Of forging those connections.
It's all around
people. So we're going to turn to your questions in just a minute here. And while we get some of those questions up, there has been a lot of articles that have come out in the last few months about teenagers not reading as much and college students not reading as much. And it has definitely set off a little bit of a freak out moment among a lot of grown-ups in the world. So when you think about those readers who are so excited when they see those books in the library, what are some things we can do to keep them excited about reading? How can we build more of that reading joy?
That's such a great question. It's a somewhat complicated one, but I think it's funny when I see those studies of teenagers not like who say I don't read books, and it's like, well, we were talking about introverts and extroverts. They're probably asking extroverted people who are not yet reading books. The introverted teens are probably not going to talk to people asking them questions. They're probably going to run away from the camera, run away from the microphone. But I think it's something we were saying earlier is how we get people in general, but also kids and teens interested in reading. It's saying, read what you love. I think that's why I love Library Joy. It's saying, read for joy, read for pleasure, not because it's something that you check off the list. It's not something that you're growing up that your teacher told you. Your teacher said, yo, you have to read Animal Farm. You have to read Homer. It's saying, what do you want to read? Do you want to read, again, we talked about graphic novels and comic books. totally real reading. And I love how many teachers are coming on to that bandwagon of saying, yes, they are. Let them read what they want to, what they want to read. I know so many people are so afraid of not just teenagers, but of their kids not being at 4th grade reading level. Let them read whatever they want to read. Let them read that same picture book 1,000 times in a row, because you know what? Eventually, they're going to memorize that book, and they're going to have to find a new one, and they're going to keep on going, and then they're going to read all the 1st grade books, and they're going to go to 2nd grade books because they read all the 1st grade ones. They're going to go to 3rd grade, 4th grade. They're going to go to reading young adult fiction, young adult nonfiction, and that's how you reach the reluctant readers. That's how you tell them. You ask them, what do you want to read? What stories do you want to read about? What stories excite you? And I think the most important thing is if there's not a book for them that they are excited by, we say, please write the story. As many kids as they don't want to read, they do love to write. They love to gab. I mean, it's teenagers gossiping, all those things. It's like, you're still talking about stories. Maybe you should keep that story to yourself, but it is still a story. And it's just saying, give them the opportunity, give them those tools to embrace the reader that they are. To say, you know what? It's okay if you just read 1 book this year. It's okay if you read 5 books. It just because you're not reading 50 books, as cool as it is to read 50 books, to fall in love with 50 stories, that 1 book reader, that 5 book reader is still just as important. They are still a powerful reader. Right. And I think for so long we've just been so afraid of reading levels, of literacy, that we forget to talk about that joy of saying, why do you love that character so much? Why do you want to reread Fourth Wing before you read Onyx Storm? Like, because back then, wouldn't you have just jumped straight back in Onyx Storm? And you're like, no, I loved Fourth Wing so much. That's why I'm going to read Iron Flame. And it's experience, it's connection. And I think when we talk about those things, when we focus on the joy, that's when you're going to see more and more readers. I think I used to do class visits with high schools, with middle schools, and at least a quarter of the class would always say, I don't like to read. Thanks for visiting us, library person. When's the summer reading challenge? When can I read books to get my free pizza? Yeah. And it is. I think that's also part of it is still focusing on the incentive, is getting them that first reason to read books. But then it's telling them, what are you interested in? And they're like, I'm big into basketball. I like basketball. That's why I keep on using basketball as a reason. I love to skateboard. And it's saying, you know what? Here are these books on basketball players. Here are these books by basketball players, on skateboarders, on the Titanic, whatever they happen to like. And they're just like, I didn't realize that was out there. They always just talk about these books that I have to read. They didn't tell me that whatever I like, there's a book for. And I think we forget to tell them that because, again, we're so worried. But I think if we just talk about, yes, this is what we have, we're going to see the joy happen in more and more library people.
We have several questions that are coming in. I'm really excited because you've given me some great fodder for the conversation that's always happening at my kids' schools. I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. The graphic novel versus chapter book thing comes up all the time. Parents are so worried about graphic novels, but it's still an immersive story. And same with audiobooks, too. Yeah,
a whole nother discussion.
All right, let's see. What's your favorite children's picture book tattoo that you have?
My favorite one is, again, I was talking with the student reporters this morning. It's very difficult. You know what? I think Arthur Reed's library card is probably my absolute favorite bookish tattoo. My mom cried the first time I got a tattoo. She doesn't like most of my tattoos, but she saw this tattoo and she was like, okay, I get it.
She's like, that one works.
Arthur, library cards, always, that's cool.
What would your recommendation be for a mid-career pivot to becoming a librarian? Thank you, Amanda.
Yes, thank you, Amanda. No, it's a great question, and my advice to anyone who wants to work in libraries, who wants to become a librarian, is to volunteer for your local library or to get an entry-level job, and most importantly, to go to your local library where you would possibly become a librarian and talk with the library staff. I love being a library person. I love libraries, but I know what I talk about on libraries, Library Joy, makes it seem very exciting. It is very hard to be a librarian. It is not an easy job, but it is remarkably rewarding. That's why library people are so empathetic. So I'm not trying to scare you away from wanting to become a librarian, but just make sure that you talk to library people about what it takes to become a librarian, especially where you live. It's different in California. It's different in New York. It's different in Texas. It's different everywhere you go. So talk to them and say, hey, what does it take? I don't want you to just go apply to a master's degree right away and then be stuck with all those student loans, but also because being a library aide, being a library assistant, is just as important as being a librarian. Yes, being a librarian is fun to say in title, but guess what? Library kids, most library people, they cannot differentiate library people. They don't know who the supervisor is. They don't know who the children's librarian is. So talk to your local librarians and consider getting an entry-level job in your local library.
All right, for both of us, okay, we'll start with Michael. What is the top of your hold list at the library?
That is a good question. I have a never-ending TBR, to-be-read pile, but I have a book club on an app called Fable, and we are getting ready to read Judy Blume's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. So I am waiting for that title to come in so I could read the actual physical book. I read a lot of books aloud to my cats, so I have to have the physical book to be able to read it to them.
To be able to do that, to show them pictures if it has it too, right?
Pictures, phonics, all those things.
My hold list, we've had a mix-up of library cards in my household, so my hold list is currently full of Diary of a Wimpy Kid and a lot of manga
All the holds come in at once.
All the holds come in at once. But I will say, I just added something to my hold list last night. It's a book I've read over and over again that I just was thinking of and wanted to read again. It's When You Reach Me by Rebecca Stead. It's a middle grade fiction book. Oh, good, I saw it. Hands up. If you haven't read this book, it's really wonderful.
I'll have to add it.
It's a bit of a puzzle book. It's set in 1970s New York, and it's an homage to A Wrinkle in Time, just to give you a little bit of a hint. So, When You Reach Me. Okay, Brooke says, what are your best tips for getting an I don't read kid in high school to give Library Joy a try?
What are your best tips for getting an I don't read kid in high school to give Library Joy a try? Is I think I would look to see who their hero is and tell them that their hero is probably talking about libraries and Library Joy and literacy. I know Chapel Roan is talking about libraries and books. There's a Chapel Roan picture book for kids. Taylor Swift is big on reading. Beyonce is big on reading. Rihanna is big on reading. LeBron James, Steph Curry, a lot of WWE people. I think showing them that their heroes are big on literacy, big on books, but also I think just asking them what they would read. I think honestly asking them that question is, what would it take to give you Library Joy a try? I think too often we don't ask high schoolers, kids, the questions we want to know. But they will tell us if we give them a chance and say, what would it take? And they may give some far-fetched answers. They may say, you need to get Beyonce in a concert at the library. That's all it would take. And it would be like, oh, okay, well,
no problem.
What's less than that? What would it take to get you so I can talk to Beyonce about coming to the library so that you'll actually be there when she does show up? And I hate to say it, but don't be afraid about incentives. Pizza for giving it a try. Coffee's expensive. Coffee for giving reading a try. I think all those things I've seen work, and you start to see the love of libraries grow.
As a children's librarian, did you have like a treasure chest of little gifts kids could get, like during reading challenge?
We had a whole bunch of bookmarks. We had a whole bunch of stickers. Kind of like I was a very cheap Scholastic book fair all the time.
I think about the high school section in my library gives out books. Somebody donated a lot of books, so if you read so many books, you can go choose another book. And I was like, that's a good incentive.
That is very difficult for library kids to understand, though, because it's a great incentive, but they often are just so used to being told you borrow the book that for them to keep a book, there's I don't believe you. What sort of sorcery is this that you're giving me this book?
You're watching me, aren't you? You're gonna follow me. Ben Kramer, what do we see the future of libraries with a growing book of ebooks and audiobooks?
The libraries are only going to get better and better with ebooks and audiobooks. I mean, we're being better than ever. We're offering people Hoopla Digital for ebooks and audiobooks. I've been talking about Canopy for movies. A lot of people love Libby. I'm a big fan of Libby.
I'm a big fan of Libby. That's what I used last night.
I read most books with Libby, and again, just saying audiobooks are real books. They are real reading. Mm-hmm. You are still having your brain fire off and saying, yes, look at us, we're absorbing this story. So I think they're going to get better and better because that's what people need. So we're already there with the future of libraries and ebooks and audiobooks.
And library is still a great place to find out what to put on your Libby, right? Or what to download next.
It's still the best place.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here today. Thank you all of you for your great questions. we please have a round of applause for Library Joy, for Mychal
Absolutely.
Threets. Thank you so much.